Fearless with Mary. I am your host, Mary Tibbetts, and I am so excited that you are here with me today. In today's episode, I am sitting down with Patrycia Rzechowka. She is an MS warrior at its finest. We talk everything MS bike, pregnancy with MS, parenthood with MS, and the documentary MS with the Wrong Girl. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
To meet you, we both live in the same city, which does not happen very often on my podcast.
Really?
No.
Oh.
I've interviewed people from everywhere except for where we live. It's weird. So for people who don't know your story, can you just tell us about when you got diagnosed, how it happened, all of that, just so everybody knows kind of what happened?
Sure. So I was diagnosed in 2012, right at the beginning. So I had symptoms kind of start up at the end of 2011. I started to lose vision in my left eye. It went from kind of blurry to painful to completely blackout. And so this was around Christmas and New Year's. So a little bit of a difficult time to get into anywhere other than an emergency room. And so, when you're completely blind in one eye, it's pretty terrifying. You're thinking oh, is it a brain tumor? Is it did my retina detach? All of the different things. And so, in the city, I at least knew where which hospital to go to that had the emergency eye clinic. And so thinking that maybe it would speed things up. It did not. When you show up to an emergency room and you tell them you can't see, the first thing they think is you're on drugs. So there was a lot of taking my blood pressure and doing all these things, and I'm sitting there with my father, right? And I'm just yeah, no, I'm not on drugs, just can't see. And so, I mean, kind of rewind a little bit, I just graduated university. I had a little bit of a blip in my eye at one point during, I think it was finals of my third year, or or the first semester of my fourth year, something along those lines. And so, by the time I saw anyone, other than sort of my optometrist, it had resolved itself. So they were just sort of oh, that's weird, let us know if it happens again, basically, because what else can you say? And so I had at least had that sort of on the record when I went into now, this episode. And when I finally, I think I went to the emergency room at 7 or 8, and by I think 2 a.m. that's when I was finally seen, and the doctor, takes a flashlight and shines it in my eye, and my pupil didn't do anything. I thought he turned the light off, and he kind of jumped back, and he was like, "Oh, you can't see." Yeah, no, legit can't see. So, then he got on the phone and he was like, "Oh, can you come back tomorrow at 7?" And I was like, you mean today at 7?" Right? So
In 3 hours?
yeah,
Sure.
basically, yeah. So, we went home for a little while, came back, and did the optom or emergency optometrist did all sort of the tests, and he was like, "Okay, this is optic neuritis. Sometimes that's a possible first symptom of MS." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." And my neurologist had kind of, or sorry, not my optometrist had kind of mentioned it when my eye was blurring that first time, but I was just sort of waved it off because I was like, MS, there's no way, right? And so, when they kind of started saying these things, they were like, "Okay, well, we have some options. We can put you on some steroids to try and get your vision back sooner, and you'll have to get an MRI." And they were like, "Yeah, we got you in March," and it was January, and I was like, "You guys still know I can't see, right?" So, anyways, enter now I understand this because now I'm a mom, but now I understand enter mama bear. My mom was like, absolutely not. She started making phone calls to anyone that she knew and got me on an MRI cancellation list. I think I got in at a Friday night at 10 o'clock, right? Just because what else was I supposed to do, right? Like I was, like, you can't see. It's sort of like you don't have much else going on. So, my dad brought me to that MRI, and because I had that, I'm luckily got in with a neurologist fairly quickly as well. So it was like mid January when I saw a neurologist. So in the end, it was a little bit faster than it was supposed to be. But yeah, if it was what it was supposed to be, it probably would have been like 5, 6 months before I actually was diagnosed. But that episode that I mentioned before that was documented with the blurring eye actually made my diagnosis easier because then they could identify that as sort of a first like flare up or first attack or issue or whatever. Yeah. So shout out to my optometrist. He was very much like, this is your eye, you need to take things seriously. And so, he sent me to the like a sort of ophthalmologist, I think it was. And yeah, and then I was seen. So yeah, the way that it worked out, it worked out that the diagnosis was a bit faster. But yeah, if it would have been a lot longer. For me, the biggest issue though was actually the steroids. So my vision kind of came back slowly, but definitely not like right away, right? Like it still was very blurry. And they told me sort of if it doesn't come back within 6 months, it'll stay that way. So, yeah. So so got the diagnosis. Kind of was, I was still blurry, and I just kind of like retreated into myself because I didn't really want to tell people. Like my family knew, and I didn't even want my you know best friends to know because it was like if I say it, then I can't take it back. Like then I absolutely have this, right? There's no going back, even though there's no going back, right? Like
Real.
yeah. Yeah. So, it took a little while for that, to kind of settle in and for me to actually start sharing, sort of with my close circle. And then I don't know how much more you want me to go into after that. I feel like that's like the Cole's notes of the diagnosis.
Stroke? No.
I did, many years later, but I can tell you about that now or later or whenever you want. No, no. Uh, Yeah, so fast forward. Well, it was actually about 10 years because it was 2022. I was pregnant with my first baby. And I had such violent morning sickness that it dissected my carotid artery, which then caused a clot, which then the next time I threw up launched it into my brain. And so I had a stroke like in my sleep. Uh, and the stroke neurologist is like pretty convinced that my dog waking me up was what saved me, like waking me up earlier than I usually get up. Because like otherwise it just kind of would have done its thing. But when I got up and like moved around and got blood flowing, it made things not as severe, still pretty bad. But when I woke up and then I was having these symptoms, uh I was like, oh, this just feels like like I was like having left side stuff, right? So I'm like, usually MS affects my left side, like. So I was just sort of like, oh, like let's just go to the hospital across from where the neurologist is, because like there's not much else they're gonna be able to do for me. And my partner was kind of like, are you sure? Like, you don't want to call an ambulance? I was like, no, no, this is just an MS thing. Like they can't do anything. Uh, Drop my stepdaughter off at school, and then we were like, yeah, okay, then we'll go there. And then sorry, no, so I ended up throwing up on the way to dropping my stepdaughter off. So he stopped to clean me off and then went, and then I had a seizure. And so when I had the seizure, he pulled over and phoned an ambulance because he was like, this is no longer MS. And then because I was pregnant, I didn't want them to do a CT. And then, so I had to do an MRI. And then like 8 hours later, they were like, oh, you had a stroke. So yeah. And then unfortunately, I get all unrelated. So that's unrelated to MS, and then unrelated to that, I ended up losing that baby at 23 weeks. So
Sorry.
it was just like 2022 was not a not a great year.
Dear.
No.
You know, it's crazy though, because I actually had seizures. That's how I found out that I had MS. So I would have thought if I were you, I'd be like, oh, it's MS.
Oh yeah. Well, I woke up in the ambulance on the way into the hospital. Like I couldn't even have told them like, oh no, don't worry, I was gone. Like there was yeah, like
Wild. So then now that's where the documentary comes in, right? Oh no, I guess you would have started the documentary before that.
yeah. So we had so I messed with the wrong girl was 2019. That was the short one. And then the COVID hit. So there I mean not tricky thing, but like I messed with the wrong girl. There was it was because it was very short, but there was so much footage because the camera crew, and the director and everyone and the editor, like they were truly professionals. Like this was a really cool experience. There was so much footage there that they were always like, we have to make more. And then COVID happened, and then the stroke happened. So yeah,
Because not everybody knows about them.
sure. Sorry, of course. I'm just getting over a cold, so I don't usually talk this much. I feel like I got to get my mom to bring me some water. um, but so 2019 was I Messed with the Wrong Girl came out. It was actually part of like a different, I don't even call it a documentary. It was like a full movie of a little like a girl. I don't know if you remember Spider Mabel. Yeah, so um the same people sort of were helping with that story line and like that wish day. And so I sort of got involved, and she sort of like we just kind of met over social media, and like her family was super sweet. And we would kind of she would have an event that I would go and support, and I would have an event she would come and support. And so in that, they kind of like there was some filming going on of me with her for her story. And in that they were like, "Oh, wait a minute, like there's a story here." And like Tell Us Story Hive, it's like the short documentary. They give funding, and it was like a voting process. They picked some and some of it was voting. And so uh they created first they asked me, they were like, oh, like, we want to do this. And I was like, no. They were like I'm like, what's the point? Like, no one's gonna want to see this. Like, no one, like, there's no point. They're like, well, let us put the pitch video together. Like, because they had to put together like a little, like, I don't know, a minute and a half or something. And I was like, fine, sure. Like, you're gonna put this together. It's gonna die. Whatever, have at her. And then they put it together, and I was like, oh crap, this is actually, I want to know what happens next, and it's my own story. Because they're really so good, right? Like, and like I was just like, I guess, yeah, sure, I guess we can do this. But then I was like, no one's gonna, like there's like hundreds of submissions. Like I was like, this isn't like they're like I think they picked 30, right? Like, and I was like, there's no way. Like there's like whatever. And then it got picked. So then I was like, well then.
Here we go.
Yeah, and so yeah, so then we started filming it, and it was 20 minutes, right? And uh they had to zero in on a very specific part of my story, right? Like they couldn't tell the whole thing. Um and so it was funny, right? Because there were so many times where like you forget, right? Like just like you watch TV, you see the finished product, and you're sort of like, oh yeah, this is cool, right? And then when you're actually filming it, like there's so many times where I was like, I don't want to shoot this again. I want it to be authentic. But then it was like, oh, like not many things are shot like that, right? Like it's like, they missed something or whatever. And so like it was a struggle for me because I was just like, I want this to be as like real as possible, right? And so but there had to be elements of, as you said, editing, right? Like
Your best friend, I
yeah.
promise.
So
Yeah.
So yeah, so you know, in the end, they you know, seeing that story was really really cool, right? To you know, like because you know, I just I kind of just live life, right? Like I don't none of the and none of anything that I've ever sort of been involved in with MS Canada or anything like it's never been I've never like sought it out, right? Like it was just sort of, you know, I would say like, you know, that's why I was kind of like, where do you want me to go with the diagnosis story? Because for me, when I heard MS, all I really knew was like MS bike. Like I was like, you know, like there, I had a neighbor that had MS. I have an aunt that married in that had MS, but like living in Poland, right? So it just there wasn't really like a strong, but like I would always hear about MS bike, and one of my friends worked at United Sport and Cycle, and I was like, I want to do this, like whether I get diagnosed or not, because like you know when they're saying MS and you're going through this diagnosis process, it's scary. So I was like, even if I don't have it, I want to help the people that like have to go through this, right? And so, and then I'm like, if I do have it, like, I just want to feel like I'm doing something about it, right? As long as I can, right? Because I don't know, right? Like at that when I, you know, I was 2012, like I really didn't know. I didn't know, you know, like what it would look like. Most of the time when people know about MS, it's because they've kind of seen like the almost like the worst case scenario, which like now even in the within like the years of the diagnosis, like I look back and I'm like, I was worried about being in a wheelchair. Like, whatever. Now I'm like, whatever. Like, I just want to make sure my brain is still there, right? Like, I just want to make sure that I'm still funny and I'm still can work and you know, like all these different things. Like, I'm like, well, I'll be in a wheelchair. I'll use a walker, right? Because it's like, you know, like that no longer is sort of the priority, right? And so, like, as longer time of the diagnosis, I've had to live with it. I'm just sort of like, there's lots of people that have MS that have mobility issues that are still like living a full life, right? Like, and so, you know, I think also having the stroke really put it into perspective for me, where it's like, you know, it was a very high chance that I, you know, could have lost cognitive function and all these different things, right? And so it really like kind of put that into perspective where it's just like, yeah, that's not that the like mobility stuff doesn't scare me anymore, right? And so, but you think back, right? And I'm like, I want to ride as long as my legs are gonna let me ride, and right, and so it became like it also like it became a thing to help me recover from the steroids because also when I was diagnosed, the research wasn't quite there yet about MS and exercise. It was still kind of like, you know, make sure you take it easy, like make sure like low impact, like if you're gonna exercise, don't overheat, don't do, you know, like be very right. And so you know, I was a person that like went running, you know, did Muay Thai kickboxing, right? Like played soccer, right? Like so I was like, what do you mean? What is low impact, right? And so the cycling in MS bike actually became a really good way for me to sort of like do the low impact, even though that didn't last very long because then it went from like regular spin classes to like cycle performance spin classes. And I was like, I'll do some yoga. And I started in yoga. And then they were like, we have core yoga and strength yoga. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good.
Pilates, stand on your head yoga. Yeah, no, yeah. I
Yeah.
do my second spin class a couple of weeks ago. The first one was years ago, and I fell off the bike. It was horrible. And I went to a spin class a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, I feel like I could maybe
You know,
get
and
on board with this.
when I started, there really wasn't like the boutique spin classes, like spin
Yeah.
studios. It was like a class at like a gym, and like I found instructors that I really liked. Like one of them was a triathlete, so her classes were very sort of like made sense to me, right? Like it was numbers based. Whereas some of the studios, like as I started, and that's how I met like some of my sort of like greatest friends is at the spin studios is like you know as those started opening because it does make me laugh when people are like, oh, like you can't train for MS bike inside only. And like I'm like, you can if you actually like turn up your resistance. If you're just sitting there spinning your legs, of course you're not gonna be able to train for MS bike. But if you're like legit, like I'm like, if you've taken like a you know, a class by like one of the instructors that like was so hard, right? Like it's just like if you can survive that class, you can do MS bike, right? Like yeah. It's about 90 kilometers a day. So it's split between 2 days. Yeah. So it's split between 2 days. You stay in Camrose the night like you when you get there, and then come back the next day. It is cool. This is one of the first years where they're really like trying to introduce like a shorter route. Like, so if you can only make it like halfway to the lunch stop, you can go halfway, and then they'll kind of bus you and your bike to the finish line. Um, so they're and like like so over the years, like I kind of had some struggles because I have a lesion on my spine. So when I overheat, like when my core temperature overheats, it flares up. So it's not like a new attack, but it flares up. And so sometimes like I kind of lose feeling from my waist down. And it's not like I just have to get off the bike and like kind of walk around and get the feeling back, and then it's fine. Like as soon as I can kind of like stand and cool off and like, but that like it just took a little bit of getting used to like not panic. It's just like I have to stop and just wait it out basically. So what resulted from that is most days I just ride the whole ride. Like I'm like I get on my bike at the start and I ride to the end. Like because if I'm stopping, then I have to like go through that whole process. So yeah. So and that's the funny thing this year. So this is my first, like I took a break last year because my daughter was like 4 or 5 weeks old, so I wasn't clear.
Just born,
Yeah. So
right? Yeah.
like number one, like just the whole yeah, I'm not sitting on a seat with that going on down there. So but like it's different, like because she so over the last year, like I've taken it like a little bit easier just because I had like pretty like not severe core separation, but quite a bit because like I was like my core was pretty strong, so it like held her in there for a long time, and then at the end it just kind of like, and then she was breech, so the middle of my core is kind of like not wanting to heal properly, even no matter how much physio I do. So it's been a slow process to like train again, and then like also trying to train with a 1 year old right now is like it doesn't really happen as I would before. So as my dad said, I will be doing the the ride like a normal person. So there is checkpoints along the way. I think there's like it's like every 10-20 kilometers, like depending on sort of where they've got it. There's a lunch stop. So each checkpoint has snacks, water, like sunscreen, bug spray, right? Like there's a lunch stop that has like the bigger amounts of like sustenance, and then there's like bike marshals, and there's like United has a like support vehicle, so if you get a flat, if like something happens, right, like they'll help you. um yeah, yeah, so they're rebranded as MS Canada now, so if you get confused, there you go.
Yeah, I
That's
became one
awesome.
a little bit ago, but we'll see. I don't know what's going on with that, but we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm as much as I can right now. Sometimes the little one tags along. Sometimes my mom watches it. So, um, there's also like, yeah, like MS Bike it's pretty like it's pretty standard on like what I have to do in terms of like spokesperson sort of duties. We do a little bit of media leading into it. Um, I got to do a little bit of stuff for Mother's Day this year, which was really fun, like some interviews for that. Because it really like because it's kind of part of the big part of my even my bigger sort of push for fundraising now is just like it doesn't seem like 2012 was that long ago, but it the things that I can tell you that have changed since then, since being diagnosed, right? Like the exercise piece, right? Like now it's encouraged. Now it's, there's sort of guidelines, right? Like it's tough because they can't tell you exactly what to do, but there's at least some guidelines and it's encouraged. So, there's that. Medication options. When I was diagnosed, it was like, here's your daily injectable, right? And people are like, oh, you get used to it, you get used to it. So I had to do IVF. And so that was like a lot of needles. And you can ask my partner. I did not one of them. He had to do every single one of them. And there was times where like we had a couple like failed transfers. And you still have to do the needles up until you know if it's failed or not. So, you know, um there was times where he was going away and after we did a transfer, and I was like scrambling to see if a pharmacist could do it, or like my you know someone else, because I'm like, I can't do them, like, and everyone's like, oh no, you know, I'm like, no. Like, I don't think you understand how much I do not like needles. Like, yeah, so that now we have infusions, now we have like EpiPen needle that you do once a month, right? Or we have pills, right? Like, there's all these different options. And then I remember so very clearly, when I was first diagnosed, some of the people that were a little bit older that had MS, that had had it for a while, were told absolutely do not have children. Your likelihood of a flare up is huge postpartum. It's too dangerous. We don't have any ways to mitigate it. We don't have any way to manage it. Don't do it, right? And so, if we were still going based on that information, if we were, like, without the research, without these medications now that you can safely take while pregnant or breastfeeding, or like leading up to pregnancy, right? Like, there's just so many options, and there's so many ways to mitigate if you do have a relapse. That, like, I don't want to say like that, my daughter wouldn't be here without, but genuinely, it's been such a push for me to keep that fundraising up, because without that research, we wouldn't be here. She wouldn't be here. Right?
Before we move forward, make sure you guys go below, subscribe to my channel, give me a like, and share with anybody that you think would benefit from this.
Right? Like,
Reading a paper about pregnancy and MS, and actually they say that when you're pregnant, because your hormones are fluctuating so much, that it's actually really good to be pregnant if you have MS, because it levels everything out. And then I was looking into, they're actually doing clinical trials right now on hormone replacement for people that have MS too, to help level it out with the medication.
yeah,
So
so that's why, and it was they were very cautious about the IVF, because with IVF you're artificially giving yourself hormones, right? And so I made sure that I was like part of a study for that as well, because I was like, I want other women that have MS, that if they have to go through this, to know that, like, you can do it, right? Like, I was fine, I was level throughout the whole thing, right? So um yeah, but it's just, like, and even like, breastfeeding is supposed to be protective, right? Like, there's lots that they know about things, like, and I think that's the really neat thing about the research, is they're really kind of going at it from all different angles. Like, it's not just like, you know yeah, like, it's like,
actually looking into
yeah,
things.
like, they're looking at cause, they're looking at, like, like, making sort of the day-to-day life more manageable. They're also looking at, like, trying to figure out if they can do remyelination to repair damage that's been done, right? Like, so there's just so many different aspects, and it's like gut health, and like, yeah, there's just a lot. Yeah.
Into any of the shows, whenever we talk about diet, my big thing is, if you're a diabetic, you follow a diabetic diet. If you have inflammation, you follow an anti-inflammatory diet. But now there's actual research done on it that proves that yes, you actually should be very mindful about what you put into your body.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
and like, I think, for me, the another big thing though is, like, I really do try and, like, make sure that I'm not careful, but like, I know people that have had, right, like, MS, that did that, followed the diets, did the exercise, did everything, and they still had very aggressive MS. And so I count myself pretty fortunate that, it's not, and that I can manage it. But yeah, like, I definitely never want to come across as being like, this is what's going to work, right? Like, it's like, this is kind of what works for me, and this is what some of the research says. But like, I do think that there is elements of, like, like there's different kinds of MS for not for a reason, but like, yeah, yeah,
We are all so very different. Like my one girlfriend, um, she was in a wheelchair, she's not in a wheelchair. She was a quadriplegic, a paraplegic, and now we went for a walk the other night. She had like it's fine. And she swears by drinking like dairy but it works like it's the thing is it's healthy. She has a healthy food routine, right? Like she's not eating cheeseburgers every single day kind of situation. For me, I can't have dairy. So it depends on who and what causes you to have flare-ups food wise and everything. It's not the same for everybody.
yeah.
It actually
Oh, yeah,
isn't.
there's some
But
people that
exercise.
like there's some people that say that bubbly's like, but the drink bubbly makes them like flare,
Really?
and I'm like, what? I drink bubbly's like every day, right? Like so,
Gosh, we buy
yeah,
the flats at Costco.
yeah. Yeah, so you just never know, right? And so I think like and I guess that's like that kind of brings it all back to sort of what I was saying around like any of the like documentaries or the advocacy, right? Like never it's never been like hey, look at me, this is what like it's just sort of been like, this is just sort of my story. And I think that the thing that keeps me going to do things like that has been the times where someone has reached out and said, holy crap, like, our story's not exactly the same, but it made me feel less alone. Or like, there's people that reach out that say, like, I don't have MS, but I have X. And, you know, and like, even when I shared about my stroke, a girl reached out and was like, oh, I literally went to the emergency, showed them your post and was like, I think I'm having a stroke. And they were like, actually, you're not. You actually have MS, right? So, like, yeah, like, so it's just like I've had so many moments like that of like, and like I know like sometimes it's just one person, but it's just like that's one person because I can think back to when I was diagnosed. There were like a handful of people that I can remember very vividly that I was like, I want like I see this person and she's like kicking butt and she has MS and like there's another, right, like there was a few of them that for MS walk, like I walk on Team Julia because I'm like I want, yeah. Yeah, because Julia was like one of my sort of inspirations because always people were always like, why don't you have your own team or why don't you have your own like I don't have my own MS bike team. I don't have my own, like, because I'm just like I don't like Julia, like she was sort of my inspiration there. And then like for MS bike, like I didn't know anyone when I first joined. There was a moment in time where I was like, I want to join the menstrual cycles because that is such a good name. Yeah, but I had no idea who these people were. Now I do. Now I know them very well, and they were like, "Why did you join us?" But like I my first year, I got so much help from United, with my bike and my gear and everything. So I was like, I'm ready for this. I did spin classes, had no idea that like if it's raining and windy, like a little raincoat is not going to help you. Like then, like that, my cycling shoes have holes in them, so they will soak right through. And that you are better served to ride in a group when it's windy because like you take turns being in the brunt of the wind, right? So there's like little old me on my bike by myself. I'm just like, I'm gonna pass the, like I'm just like I can do this. Yeah, no, like, and then so I ended up not being able to finish the second day of the ride because it was the worst weather probably they've ever had. So I got pulled off by first aid at the halfway point because I was like hypothermic because I literally had like a small raincoat. And I phoned my dad and I was like, "Hey, can you bring me like my spare shoes and like my whatever?" And then like first the paramedic took the phone. It was like just, and then like she went and talked to him and
No, she's
so
not allowed.
and so he shows up with like like an armful of like sweatpants and stuff, and like we're driving back, and the wind is like pushing the car into the ditch, and he just like looks over and he's like, "So you were on your bike in this, hey?" And I was like, "Yeah, that day, yeah." So But then after that, like I mean, the interesting thing about, like, I feel like my story is just kind of like everything that's happened has happened because it was supposed to happen that way, because I didn't finish that. I actually got to go to the States because I did pretty well with my first year of fundraising, because at a point in time, I think it was I think the ride's in June, and about March, I was like, okay, I like wanted to make a difference here, so I'm gonna actually just share my story of being diagnosed with the Facebook, right? Like, because in 2012, Facebook was like where because other than that, it was sort of like, I was just like, I was gonna be asking my parents, coworkers, and my friends to donate, and then and so I was like, I'm gonna share my story, and I set a goal of $1,000. She's like, cool, I want a jersey. Like, that would be great. And then I hit $1,000 in like 3 days. So I was like, oh. And then just like kind of kept coming and kept coming. And so I was like, oh, well. And this was back in the day too, where you had like paper donation sheets. So I was like, I already filled them out with 1,000. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do now? So I was like, oh, I'll just like add a zero and I'll do 10,000, because 10,000 in that year, if you raised $10,000, they sent you to an MS bike in Miami. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool. But I was like, there's no way I'm gonna raise $10,000. But I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Right? Like, I'll just write it. If I don't raise it, I don't raise it. Right? Like, no one's gonna be like, oh, right? Like, and so then I managed. I think I raised just shy of $13,000 that first year. So when it came to doing that ride in Miami, I was like, well, now I gotta like kick butt, because like I didn't ride my didn't finish the second day of my first ride. So like now I gotta, and in the States, it's 100 miles each day. So that's 160 kilometers each day. So that's like, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, but down there you kind of ride with like Team Canada. So I kind of like met some of the people that were riding in the ride that I ride in. And the first day, there's a big group of us, and we were kind of like, yeah, let's do the 100 miles, let's do it, whatever. And there was a turn off, and it was like 100 miles, you go straight, 80 miles, you turn left. And so we're like, yeah, everybody up, yeah. So I go straight. Two other guys go straight. Everyone else turns. So there's me and these two guys that I like kind of knew, but like not really. So I'm like, oh my God. So the whole time I'm like, please, you guys, like, I'm on this, like, please don't leave me, right? Like, you guys cannot leave me. And they were like, no, we won't leave you. We won't, don't worry. Like, we're gonna, and they have not left there. No, actually, that's not true. They have not left me with riding, but one of them passed away in 2022 in an accident, which was like quite tragic. So again, 2022, not a great year, but like I started riding with that team ever since, because like I was like, these are my people, right? Like like you become very close with people very quickly when you're riding 100 miles, right? Like,
Uh, just the three of you going as well. Oh my God, I can't believe they turned off. I would have been so mad. I would have been like, that was not the plan
yeah.
here.
So yeah, so they're like they're the Fillmore construction team, which is now the like biggest fundraising team in Canada, and like the biggest team in the ride. Like, but then like I'm like, well, that's my team. Like, so I was like, what would be the point of me creating my own team when I have like this amazing team here that like, yeah. And so I've done is just recruit people to that team and just made that team bigger, and it was amazing, right? And so over the years, like, it's just, yeah, like that's just kind of been my, like, I have so many people that I respect that make a difference in the MS world, whether they have MS or not, because there's a lot of people that do fundraisers because they have someone that they're close to, right? And so yeah, like, it's, I don't know, again, like, that's why it's always so funny when people are like, oh, tell us about this documentary, or tell us about that, and I'm just always like, this was never what it was supposed to be, but it's what it turned into, right? Like,
Those beautiful stories, though, right? Because you're like, it wasn't supposed to be this, and then it's now this magical thing, and I have this whole team of people, and it's really beautiful. If you actually were to listen to your story and it not be your story but somebody else's, you would be like, oh my
well,
God.
that's why I joke about the like pitch video because I was like, yeah, like if this wasn't me, like I was like, holy crap, like this, like because just the way that they like told it, right? Like I was just like, whoa, like this is so cool. Like I'm like, oh wait, that's me, right? Like and
You're
so
like, tell me more. What
yeah,
happened?
pretty much, right? Like that's what it felt like.
Else, because it happens on the daily, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's like I think it's
Or chronic illness. What advice would you give them now?
um I feel like the number one thing is like your life is not over. Like it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. It's going to be a lot of like what now? But there is a lot out there that can really help with the what now piece. And like I don't know, you just I don't know, I don't it's just hard, right? Because I also feel like I feel not that I'm that far into it, but I do. I feel like I've almost like lived a lifetime with it, in
You
however
really
many
have.
years. Because like I've just graduated university, right? Like I was hoping to be a police officer, right? Like everything had to shift for me, right? And so, I still like stubbornly pushed ahead with it, even though like I was just, they tried to disqualify me, right? Like um but I ended up like my dad was laughing because like, I didn't really have a plan B, and he's like, well, you can't just volunteer for the MS Society, like that's not like that's not going to get you anywhere or whatever. And then I spoke at an MS breakfast where there was MLAs and like ministers, and the Minister of Justice was there, and he was like, oh, I want this girl to come work for me. And they had like a position that they were desperately trying to hire for that had to start right away, and the person backed out, and they were like, can you do this job? And I was like, I don't know, like I probably figure it out, right? Like I'm qualified to do the job, like. And he's like, hey, you got a 6-month temporary, like let's see what you can do. And it's been 10 years now that
Oh, you're still
I
with them.
yeah, I've like moved to different positions. Like I did the 6 months, then I got extended, then I got a different position, then I got another, like I've bounced around and done different projects. And so, yeah, and that was never in the cards for me, right? And like, I have a criminology degree, but then now I do community engagement because of all of the like volunteer stuff that I've done with MS Canada and the training that I've received because of that, right? So it's just like, I think if you just like, let your life kind of do its thing, like, and just sort of, and I think that's kind of what MS has taught me in general, but then like it just kind of apply it to real, like to everyday life of just like you can like let go of that feeling like you have to control everything, because you don't have that control with MS, right? Like you just, it's so unpredictable. um and so yeah, like the more I learn to just sort of let go and go with the flow as much as possible, I feel like, opportunities came up and like all the different things, right? And so I think that's been my sort of like a big takeaway. Again, at the beginning of your diagnosis, I think it's hard. And then, like, I think it also depends on where in your life you're at, right? Like, I know people that were diagnosed as teenagers in high school. And then I know, one of my best friends was diagnosed, and, she's in the midst of her career and has 2 small kids, right? Like, and so the advice also, like it probably can't be the same for everyone, but I think the general rule of like you will figure it out. Like there, if you have a good like support network, if you have a good like care team, and there's a lot of good information out there now that like you can start asking the right questions, right? Like if you actually look into some of the research and yeah, like just kind of connecting, and like just like the MS community, like MS Walk, MS Bike, like the event itself is just like it gives me like it almost gives you like a jolt that like for the rest of the year where you're like, yeah, I can do this. Like even like the A&W fundraiser, right? Like where people go and eat teen burgers and talk about it, right? Like it's just like this the kind of the silliest thing, but you're seeing people from across the country doing something for people with MS, right? And so it's just like if you kind of like look for those sort of positives, look for the community, look for the yeah, just ways to get involved. Like
first time I've ever done it. I think it was the first time. I've done a lot of walks,
Yeah.
but this year, obviously, I was walking for a very different reason. I was walking for me this year, which I've never done before. And I actually had to take a break because it was it was really it was hard to it's hard to explain, but the energy, there was so much energy. I actually had to take a break over in the field away from everything, and I actually had a little cry, and then I came back because I'm like, this is really emotional right now. But it was my first year, right? So it's a little different than
Yeah, and I think there's some people that also like aren't ready for that, like in their first year, right? Like I think it's just all sort of I don't think there's any right way to handle the diagnosis. I think it's more so like even like just know that these things are happening, that there's a lot of support that is there. There's a lot of people that are, kind of like in this fight, right? Like there's a lot of um good work kind of going on behind the scenes of like the research and all the different things, right? Like it's like it is really cool to be able to see like even um what like level of research is happening like in this province, in this country, right? Like so we have the highest rates in the world, but we also arguably have some of the best researchers in the world. Like and like I have a neurologist that's constantly attending like research conferences that are worldwide, right? Like they're sharing the information, right? Like there's so much going on, and if you have a good care team that stays on top of the research, like that was one of the main reasons that I really loved my neurologist, is she was very on top of sort of MS and pregnancy stuff. So she was the one telling me like, oh, your baby's due in May, Kate, like you're taking a tropical vacation sometime in December, January, so that you get a vitamin D exposure, so that your baby gets vitamin D exposure in utero, because some babies born in April and May are more susceptible to developing MS because of lower vitamin D levels in utero. And I was like, what?
kids are born in May.
Yeah. So
I wish I would have. See, now I can just say that to my
no,
husband.
I'm not telling them that they're going to develop MS or anything. It's just like,
I should just have your neurologist make do a prescription for me that I can hand to my husband and say, see, I don't know what to tell you. The doctor told me I have to go on tropical vacation every year. It's just a thing. I would be okay with that.
so yeah. So but I mean that wouldn't have existed before, right? And so it's just like yeah, like then a lot of it wasn't when I wanted to have the baby, it wasn't, you're not doing this. It's okay, how do we keep you safe when we're doing this, right? And so I think a lot has shifted, especially like with like a lot of the places, like a lot of places have the MS clinics now, that the neurologists are really like well versed in MS, like that's sort of their specialty. And then there's in there there's dietitians and psychologists and everything, there's a whole team there, right? And so there's also we've seen like even with MS bike, like there's lots of like physio clinics that are involved with MS bike, because there's a lot of physiotherapists that are becoming so well versed in what MS can look like, that they can kind of see it also, right? And so it's just like,
Physiotherapist who specializes in MS. Yes, here. And she's fabulous.
yeah,
Because I have like a hip situation, and I said I just need to know if it's muscular or like what it is. And she, after all of the things and after a couple of it, she's like, it's from your MS. She's like, it actually is. So this is what we actually need to do. This sort of exercise is not going to help you, but this will help you. She's
yeah,
fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but you have to research it. You have to actually like put the effort in to try and find it. Anyways, well, okay, before we sign off here, is there anything else that you would like to add? And where can everybody find you? And what do you have coming up? Anything?
Oh. Well, MS Bike is coming up. My partner and I are very slacking in the training and the fundraising. So I think actually we're probably gonna have an event in like September, possibly.
Okay.
So maybe stay tuned for that. But yeah, MS Bike is the big one. Obviously riding there. And then yeah, I mean, you can find me like social media. Most of my handles are my last name. I can't even call it X. It's Twitter. Like, come on now.
Ridiculous,
Uh,
100%.
so my Twitter handle is the phonetic spelling of my last name, which is Jahoofka. But I really don't use that very much anymore, sadly, because that was actually how I connected with a lot of like Spider Mabel and like all the different things. And now like nobody really uses it anymore. It's pretty much like a old man yells at cloud website now, where you're just like, I'm gonna go on Twitter and complain at this thing, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, Instagram is probably the easiest. It's just my last name. This is with like actual spelling of my last name. I do have a website. I am not as active on there now. Uh,
It's in everywhere, so everybody can check it out. And then if you have your donation link, though, I will get you to send me that.
yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, I mean the website is even though I haven't really like updated that recently, it does actually like it has good links in terms of like just where the documentary information is. I'll probably like I'll be updating it there like if the longer one whenever that sort of if it gets off the ground or like lands somewhere, I guess. But there's also like Lindsay, like the art stuff, right? Like I made sure to link her there, right? Like so there's some good information there. I try
Love
and
her, by the way. Side
yeah.
note, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, it's good.
it's crazy because you and I live in the same city. I didn't actually really know about you. I interviewed Lindsay, and then she's like, well, have you talked to Patricia? And I was like, no. And then I looked you up. I was like, how do I not have you? I have people from friggin' Australia. How do I not have you? So,
Because I've been like in Babyland for the last year.
yeah, that's
Which
true.
like I think
Which
that's
you're
I
allowed, a hundred
yeah,
percent.
and I think that's another thing that like I was feeling a little bit guilty about it at first, and I was like, no, like this is just like the season of my life, right? Like I just want to focus on her right now, and uh, you know, it's like everything, even with postpartum. It's like living with MS. I feel like it's also like helped me with postpartum, right? Where it's just like this is just not. I don't need to like bounce back. Like I don't need to, like this is like I want to enjoy this baby. I can, like things like just shift, like priorities shift, right? Like I'm like, okay, so like I said, I can't. I'm probably not gonna do the ride like from start to finish, but I'm still gonna do it, right? Like so it's just like a lot of this shifts, like now I walk the dog and go for a walk with the dog and the baby, and that's instead of doing a spin class, right? And that's just how it is, right? Like it's just like you just have to kind of adjust and be flexible, and I think that actually like the general life with MS has really helped me with that. And it's just sort of like if I want to get back there, I'll get back there, right? Like and like it's like this is a moment in time, and right now I'm like enjoying this moment, right? And yeah, but like
She's so flipping cute. Oh my goodness. She is so flipping cute. We were talking earlier, my baby's leaving. So
yeah.
if you ever need like, if she ever needs cuddles or something, you could just call me. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so but that's what I mean, right? Like now you're like your baby's 19, right? And so I'm just like you know, one day she'll be 19, right? And
It
so
goes
right
by
now I'm
really
just sort of
fast, by the way.
like, yeah.
Yeah. And it
Uh,
all those people that always say, you know, it goes by really fast, really appreciate it. When I was younger and the kids were younger, I was like, yeah, yeah, okay. Well, it's not going by very fast right now, and I want to like them because they're driving. I have three boys, by the way,
oh my
just saying.
God. Oh
So
my God.
I'm like, they won't stop fighting, and I'm so tired. And then now that the last one is leaving, I'm like, I'm not really sure how that happened because I feel like I just gave birth to him like yesterday. That's so weird.
Even her turning one, like I'm like, what? Like I was like, oh, it's her. Like I'm like, it's her first MS walk, but I'm like, we were technically gonna do MS walk last year, but then it was raining and she was 2 weeks old, and I was like, okay, like no, no.
Yeah,
There's a line, right? Like, but she
you're
was
like,
at MS bike last year at 5 weeks old, so
yeah,
because it was a nice weekend.
My goodness, I love it. Okay, well, thank you again so much for coming on. And I will make sure that I put all of your links in for everybody to follow and to donate for the MS bike. And just keep doing what you're doing because you're so awesome. And you're just like, you're an inspiration. And I love you now. Like, this is great. Oh my goodness. So, okay, everybody, we will talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in.